Hello everyone, I am Xiaoru Meng. Today I'm very happy to walk you through a case study on lesson plan redesign. I took a very standard kindergarten lesson plan for the gingerbread man and transformed it using Universal Design for Learning (UDL) and the differentiated instruction (DI). My goal was to move from a one-size-fits-all approach to a truly inclusive classroom experience. Now let's get started. Before we look at this lesson, I want to introduce you my focus child, Kian. He is a very energetic 5-year-old boy in a mainstream class, and he has a shadow teacher. Kian has expressive language delights and a very high need for gross motor activity. When he is forced to sit still for too long, he gets frustrated. He often relies on physical actions like throwing away things, throwing away toys to get attention or interact because he doesn't have the words to do so. Now let's look at the original lesson plan. It was highly teacher-directed. It asked 5-year-olds to sit quietly on the chair for 20 minutes to listen to a story, followed by everyone doing the same craft at the same time. Finally, the teacher assisted them by asking each child to hold up their craft and speak English out. For a child like Kian, this original plan is basically a setup for failure. It demands two things he struggles with the most: sitting still and speaking verbally. It excludes nonverbal children and directly triggers behavior issues. So, how do we fix it? I restructured the lesson plan using the whole part whole framework. We start together with an engaging hook, break into flexible learning stations tailored to different needs, and come back together to share in a way that gives everyone a voice, even if they don't use words. Let's start with the first whole. Engagement. Instead of demanding 20 minutes of static listening, I redesigned the introduction to be multi-sensory. Before the story even starts, pass around the sealed jar of real gingerbread species. The kids can smell the lemon and ginger. Then, instead of just listening to me to talk, the students get character prompt cards. When they hear me say fox or cow, the kids holding those cards have to stand up and show them. Why did I do this? Because it changes passive listening into active physical engagement. I also changed the learning goal. The original goal was to speak English. My new inclusive goal is every student will identify characters using verbal speech or sign language or visual pointing. Next is the part. This is where differentiated instruction happens. I replaced the whole class craft time with 3 flexible learning stations. Station 1 is the gross motor retail station. I tap a story path on the floor. Children physically move along the path, running and stopping just like the gingerbread man. This is specifically for kinesthetic learners to process the story through their bodies. Station 2 is my teacher-led content table. Here, I differentiate by readiness. Students with strong language skills can chant the rhymes with teacher. But for students with language delays like Kian, I use PECS, Picture Exchange Communication System. Boards, they can communicate by pointing to the pictures instead of feeling pressured to speak. And station 3 is a sensory craft station. We don't only use the crayons. We use Play-Doh, pipe cleaners, and textured beans, giving them rich tactile inputs. Within these stations, I intentionally embedded specific instructional strategies. First, and my teacher table, I use visual and gestural prompting. If I ask a question, I don't wait for Kian to struggle to find the words. I immediately point to the correct picture to scaffold his response. This lowers his anxiety. Second, I use embedded teaching opportunities and the gross motor station. We don't sit at the desk to text vocabulary while they are running on the mat. The shadow teacher or I will hold up a green card and shout, "Run, run as fast as you can." Or a red card for "Stop." We are assessing their receptive language naturally while they play. We also use peer modeling, pairing verbal kids with non-verbal kids during the craft, so they learn from each other naturally. I want to make it very clear how Kian inspired all of these changes. The static nature of the original plan was the exact trigger for his aggressive, attention-seeking behavior. By introducing the gross motor station, I gave him an active, completely excitable way to burn his physical energy. I turned his need to move from a behavior problem into a learning tool. By replacing mandatory speaking with visual prompting and PECS boards, I removed the primary barrier to his success. He no longer needs to throw a toy or be frustration because we've given him a safe, successful way to communicate. Finally, we bring the class back together for the second whole. In the original plan, everyone had to say, "I am a gingerbread man." I changed this by providing a choice board. Students can choose how they want to show what they've learned. They can choose verbal expression and say the chant. They can choose kinesthetic action and act out the running motion. Or they can choose visual pointing, bringing their craft to a story map on the whiteboard and simply pointing to their favorite part. This ensures that Kian and everyone else can participate and feel successful in front of their peers without any verbal pressure. To conclude, I want to share the most important insight I gained from redesigning this lesson plan around Kian. Effective early childhood intervention sometimes requires us to do the exact opposite of our natural instincts. Our instincts as teachers is often to tell a restless child, no, sit down, or to push a quiet child to try harder to speak. But the exercise taught me that when we design for our most vulnerable learners, when we provide movement, visual supports, and choices, we don't just help that one child, we actually create a richer, more engaging, and more joyful learning environment for the entire class. That's all of my presentation. Thank you.